Well, hello, and welcome to the show, folks. Exile Minds podcast with me, your incredibly famous host, Leah Martin. Today, got an impromptu bonus show today. We're going to do a special. I'm not going to be able to really do justice for this show in just 1 hour, but we'll have a go. Because I've not looked into this guy too much. And the topic of discussion today, episode I think number 44 of the Exile Minds podcast, is going to be Rudolf Steiner and the Theosophical Society. The journey into spiritual enlightenment is the title of today's show. So we're going to take a look at the influence of Rudolf Steiner in consort with the Theosophical Society, who's been mentioned in the magical episodes, and Madame Blavatsky, one of the co-founders of the Theosophical Society, and they often call Rudolf Steiner a friend of the society. They're divergent. So I thought, we'll have a look into that. We'll look into this guy. I've been meaning to do it for a while. I came across him for the magic show. I did a massive, gigantic, far too big script for the magic show with Michael. It was like 63 pages. It was ridiculous. It was well referenced, but it was way too big. And I didn't even really get to touch on Rudolf Steiner much with that, because there was so much to go at. I've listened to some of his audiobooks, or people translating them, and some long ones. Got a lot of complicated stuff to say. But today we're gonna have a go on the Exile Minds podcast. So join us on a captivating journey through the life and teachings of Rudolf Steiner. He was a visionary thinker, profound influence of the Theosophical Society, as I mentioned, and that of all movements of sort of spiritual development. So in this enlightening radio episode, we'll delve into the intriguing world of esotericism, the mystics, exploring the profound impact of Steiner on the fields of education, art, agriculture, and spirituality. So Steiner goes from back in the day, but how far back? 19th century. Okay, so, in the 1800s, Rudolf Steiner was born late 19th century. He was a polymath, meaning that, self-taught in a lot of disciplines and considered an expert. That's a polymath. So he's a polymath, spiritual philosopher, who's founded the Anthroposophical Society, a movement dedicated to understanding the hidden dimensions of human existence. Quite a lofty endeavour. Steiner's beliefs were heavily shaped by his early association with the Theosophical Society, which is why they get a mention in the title. And and the mystical and philosophical organisation, the Theosophical Society, they're seeking to uncover profound truths about the universe and human nature, which is what attracted Steiner to this. So, in this episode, we uncover Steiner's journey from the Theosophical Society to the from Theosophy to Anthroposophy. We see how he kind of transitioned, and how we expand upon the theosophical ideas to create a unique, holistic worldview. So we'll explore the groundbreaking work and fields of the Waldorf education system, as well as the biodynamic agriculture, which is another thing that he sort of came up with, which is going to perhaps segue into another good thinker as well, Victor Schauberger, which we'll get to towards the end there, in terms of the agriculture. But yeah, he's definitely demonstrating insights into the transcendental realms. So let's and aspects of the influence aspects of your daily life. So today I'm hoping that we'll be able to navigate through this complex tapestry of Steiner's life, philosophy, and contributions to society, try and shed a little bit of light onto the Theosophical Society and its founders, and its impact on the spiritual thought of the late 19th century and the early 20th centuries. So, without any further ado, then, whether you're a seasoned seeker of the spiritual wisdom or just a curious mind, if that is just a curious mind, good thing. Yep, we'll tune into the Rudolf Steiner and Theosophical Society, a journey into the spiritual enlightenment, for an exploration into the mystical, the practical, and the profound. So join us, and we'll uncover the truths about this remarkable era. Is important. I think this time period is quite a remarkable time period, and the visionary thinkers did indeed shape it. So, also broadcasting today, Troubled Minds Radio Network, KWP Digital Broadcasting, just in the Exile Minds podcast. So today, Rudolf Steiner. So Rudolf Steiner will journey into the philosophical world of the esotericism, and it's a multifaceted process. So we'll go for a brief overview and see how can I have a look at how he got started. So let's get him up on screen. Let's get a picture of the man, the mystery himself, Mr. Steiner. For the video viewers, I'll get myself off the screen there, so we can get a look at the guy. So yeah, a brief overview then. So how he got started with this. So is in early education. So Rudolf Steiner, he was born in the 1861, 27th of February 1861, in the country that's now known as Croatia. He grew up in an intellectually stimulating environment and showed early interest in philosophy, literature, and the natural sciences. So he's 1861. Okay, that's an important era, I think, personally, in terms of the sciences and understanding. I think the sort of 1800s was really important era. In the 1700s, where we've got where science is coming into its own, and alchemy's kind of become chemistry, and then in the 1800s, the science is sort of finding its feet. And I think that they made some important discoveries with this so-called magical and these spiritual understandings. So I often think this is an important sort of area of history, this sort of time period. So I'll make a quick point of that. So yeah, so he's born in this kind of like important sort of era for thinkers. So he's born in 1861. Okay, and he's in a family of intellects, and he shows some promise in literature, philosophy, and the natural sciences. His academic background: Steiner was pushed into higher education and earned his first a PhD in philosophy in 1891, University of Rostock. His doctoral thesis was on the epistemological foundations of Goethe's natural scientific writings, demonstrating his early interest in the work of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Theosophical Society involvement. Steiner's involvement with the Theosophical Society began in the early 20th century. So we're talking 19 whatever, which we'll get to, 1909, somewhere like that. And he initially joined the German section of the society, and he led the German section. It was led by Annie Besant, who's one of the most prominent Theosophical Society figures. She's not one of the founders, but she was one of the main people, and that was in the German section. That's the section he joined. His association with the society allowed him to engage with these esoteric ideas and practices that he was getting into. So it lined up with the thinking that he was doing anyway. Okay. His esoteric interest during his time with the Theosophical Society, Steiner developed a keen interest in the teachings of Helena Blavatsky, who was one of the founders, and other theosophical writers. He also began to conduct esoteric investigation and developed his own spiritual insights. Okay, so Steiner started to. This is the important thing that I kind of noticed with him, why they call him a friend at the Theosophical Society, but they point out that he kind of diverged a little bit away from what they were teaching. But he was particularly interested in Helen Blavatsky, which is kind of a bit of a curiosity in its own, because he's particularly interested in one of the founding members. But after getting involved for a number of years, he started to diverge, even though he's with one of the core people. But we'll have a quick look at who Helen Blavatsky is, because I don't know. Again, she deserves a show on her own, I think. And Steiner, I didn't know to do a show about the two, Helena Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner, or whether to do this one on his own, or what as one as a big philosophical, because there's a lot of subject matter to get through, and it's kind of difficult to know sort of where to start with it. But he was interested in the founder Blavatsky specifically, so we'll have a look on see what Wikipedia's got to say to remind us who Blavatsky was. So, Helena Blavatsky. I forget myself off this screen for a minute. So, Helena Blavatsky, she was one of the founding members of the Theosophical Society then. So, Helena Blavatsky, she was born a couple of decades. She was born in 1831. So, Steiner comes a bit later. She's a bit older than Steiner, but a lot of people looked up to Blavatsky. So she's also known as Madame Blavatsky, the Russian-American mystic and author, who's the co-founder of the Theosophical Society in 1875. So like I say, this is in the 1800s, in this important area for magic and science starting to become a kind of fusing together, also branching apart. She gained an international following as the leader of the for founding the Theosophical Society. She's really got herself a following. She was born into an aristocratic family. This is the thing, when the Russian Empire had the Ukraine, and so she lived in that kind of Ukraine area that's like we call Ukraine today, but she was in this aristocratic family of an empire that was doing pretty well. So she had a kind of free reign and she had kind of money behind her. So she's largely educated herself, as self-developed interests in Western esotericism during the teenage years. So right from the get-go, Madame Blavatsky as a teenager, she's wealthy, not quite a princess, but she's aristocrat's daughter, starts getting interested in some of the esoteric teachings of Europe. And then in its latest, she claimed she embarked on a series of world travels, visiting lots of places in Europe, going to the Americas, and then into India. It's also claimed that during this period she encountered a group of spiritual adepts, masters of ancient wisdom. Okay, so this is where it gets a bit airy-fairy for some people. But Madame Blavatsky, she was really into these spiritual teachings. Supposedly she'd been approached by these people that had the kind of, the real hardcore stuff. So she was sent to Tibet, supposedly to go and train under some master. There she trained to develop a deeper understanding of the synthesis of religion, philosophy and science. So she was really going in hard. And I think this is one of the reasons why Steiner sort of looked towards her, because if you listen to Rudolf Steiner, available on the internet, on places like YouTube, Dailymotion, all the video places, there's lots of you can hear him speak. He spoke German, but you can hear he's got lots of writings that you can sort of get in the public domain. You can get to have a read of some of these things translated into English, and there's people have read them and done a lot of kind of audio recordings and audiobooks. So they're worth having a listen to. They remind me a little bit of the works of not kind of written the same, but the same kind of talkings that you get, the same kind of things you hear from Alan Watts. It's what it is, metaphysics. It's what it is. It's metaphysics and spirituality, and so it's the same kind of wording, but it's that same kind of deep knowledge on a really deep level. It's definitely worth recommending you look some of these up. But yeah, if you're interested in Blavatsky as well, so this was like her life. I often joke that she was almost like, whereas Bruce Lee learned Wing Chun from Ip Man, who was able to just practice Kung Fu all day, she was doing like a mental Kung Fu all day. She was in a situation where she was able to practice that all the time. So her mental Kung Fu was like as good as Donnie Yen sort of thing. So and Rudolf Steiner, like I say, he was following her in quite a hardcore way, and she founded the Theosophical Society. So now I've mentioned that, let's have a look then. Let's look at the Theosophical Society, see what the write-up says about these people. I'll get myself on screen for this one. Okay, let's have a look. So, Theosophical Society. I'll zoom in for the video viewers. So, the Theosophical Society from encyclopedia.com. Mental Kung Fu. Oh, Matsao! Looking good, bro, Sif. Mike's in the chat. Thanks very much, Mike. Appreciate that. You're not looking too bad yourself. Not looking too bad yourself. Anyway, you're my benchmark, Mike. By the way, yeah, mental kung fu. That's what it is. In fact, there's a notion out there that was in when I did a Body Dharma show. There's a notion of a guy that's talking about like that maybe some of these battles, these really wild Eastern battles, may have happened in the astral, and that's how people can have loads of arms and fire 1,000 arrows, or block 1,000 arrows with a sword. Maybe some of these epic Eastern battles are happening in the astral plane, using mental kung fu. So you send your best warriors out to fight in the astral to see who would have won the battle, and then you don't actually have to lose thousands of soldiers, sort of thing. Which is a pretty funky notion on its own. But anyway, going on, Theosophical Society. So Rudolf Steiner joined these people. He was really into them. Had the similar kind of philosophies. Did diverge a little bit, but these people are important to him, and he was really into the founding member, which we just covered a bit. So let's have a read about the Theosophical Society, and let's see what it says. So from encyclopedia.com. The major modern organization advocating Gnostic, esoteric, Gnostic as in the Gnostics, as in the pre-Christian people, which we'll do a show on. Yeah, esoteric teachings. The Theosophical Society was founded in New York, in 1875 by Helena Petrova Blavatsky and Henry Steele Olcott, who was a colonel, by the way. Henry Olcott was a colonel, and William Quan Judge, and others. It grew out of an interest of occult generated previously from the magnetist movement, or spiritually, especially in spiritualism. So the spiritualist and mesmerism movement and magnetism. And this is what I'm saying. It's like science stuff. It's like you're figuring funky stuff out about magnets. You're wondering about electric. That's coming into play. You're putting the two together. People are kind of electric, aren't they? It's not that much of a leap. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't think it is. Especially when you've got Van de Graaff static machines that, you wind a belt and it kind of like creates static. You put your hands on it and make your hair stand up. I mean, they're figuring this stuff out. But anyway, so both Blavatsky and Olcott were closely concerned with spiritualist investigations. So they were parapsychologists of the time. Okay, and they met at the house of the Eddy brothers in Vermont. They were also concerned with the claimed phenomenon of mediums. Mr. and Mrs. Nelson's home of Philadelphia, who were accused of cheating. The Holmes partnership involved the alleged manifestation of spirits Katie King and John King, associated with the British medium Florence Cook. Blavatsky eventually disowned the Holmes phenomenon, but endorsed the reality of the spirit of John King. Oh, isn't that quite fascinating then? So she says, no, they're just faking it. Although, one of the spirits they were talking about is a real dude. That's interesting. Or is that one of those disclaimer things where you wriggle your way out of it and go, oh yeah, no, I don't believe him. I didn't believe him really. I just believed in the spirit. Would have been one of them little marketing back in the day. Anyway, yeah, in May 1875, Blavatsky and Olcott formed the Miracle Club. Excuse me. The Miracle Club, 1875, which offered an alternative and prevailing scientific materialism. But the organization languished. Soon Olcott began to receive messages through Blavatsky from a mysterious Brotherhood of Luxor, prototypes of the famous Mahatma letters of years later. I don't know what the Mahatma letters are. These messages claimed the support of a hidden master's wisdom. Okay, yeah, hidden masters of wisdom in the spreading of truth. In November 1875, the Theosophical Society was founded with Olcott as president, Blavatsky as corresponding secretary, and as George as the lawyer, or as counsel. Okay, yeah. So this is where it seems a bit airy-fairy with this stuff, because, yeah, Yeah, because they're talking about this, the Mahatma letters. Yeah, it makes it sound goofy that she's supposed to have met these adepts. You know, during her travels, she's been approached by people that are supposed to have, you know, not I don't want to say the secret teachings, but they're supposed to have the hardcore stuff, and she's supposed to have spent some time with them, and then she's getting these like secret messages sent to her, you know, kind of helping her out and guiding her. Sort of makes it sound all a little bit woo woo, but for the fact that people saw her do stuff, people saw her use sort of telekinetic powers, and she did try to channel books, and she channeled a Tibetan Tenga, these Tenga things that, like, in a perfect translation from Tibetan, that somebody like realized years later that it was one of the books she wrote, like tons and tons of books that she's supposed to have channeled, and one of them was a perfect translation of this Tenga, and somebody discovered it years later, a bit like the Betty and Barney Hill, where somebody years later discovered that one of the maps that they'd seen and drew of the star charts could have been Zeta Reticula. And there was a similar thing with Blavatsky in the channeling of the book. So it just, although I know how it sounds a bit, you know, secret squirrel club. They've got the secret messages from, you know, the Golden King living in the center of the earth, all that kind of jazz. But well, there's stuff to back it up. There's stuff to back it up. So that's the stuff with the Theosophical Society. They got founded in the, well, towards the late 19th century, so 1875. And yeah, so they're already kind of like up and running. It was all like ready to go kind of thing. But anyway, moving back on with going back to Rudolf Steiner, I just wanted to drive home the importance of the link to the Theosophical Society. So let's get Steiner back on the screen there before we go back to the script. So yeah, so he's got these esoteric interests that align nicely with the Theosophical Society. He goes on to then become a lecturer, and because he's got his own ideas that are starting to diverge, he starts writing about them. So he becomes, Rudolf Steiner becomes a prolific lecturer at this point, and a writer during all this period. He gave numerous lectures on a wide range of topics, including metaphysics, spirituality, education in general, and the arts. He published several books, including The Philosophy of Freedom, also known as The Philosophy of Spiritual Activity, which outlined his early philosophical ideas. He then goes on to found the Anthroposophical Society. Once he began to split with the Theosophical Society, after being with them for a few years, he went on to found the Anthroposophical Society, and that was in 1913. So in 1913, Rudolf Steiner separated at that point from the Theosophical Society. So they've been going a good 38 years already. So he's been with them for a number of years, sort of separated, but they still called him a good friend, and he established the Anthroposophical Society. It says the decision was driven by the differences in spiritual philosophy and approach. The Anthroposophy was developed by Steiner to delve deeper into the individual spiritual development, human evolution, and practical applications of spiritual principles. So basically, what that was, the essential split was that the fundamental thing, if you could put it down to one thing, was that he wanted to look more into and take a greater responsibility on your individual. He was saying you've got more of an individual kind of responsibility, and he wanted to look at the individual's path rather than sort of persistently sticking to this doing things for the greater good thing. He was a bit more interested in the individual person and what individual practical individual things can you do, rather than, I suppose, the greater good stuff and let karma sort it out. He wanted to get a little bit more hands-on, so to speak. It seems to me, the way I sort of interpret that. But anyway, got to stick to the radio clock, keep it nice and tight, because Mike's got me well trained. So I'm going to put a quick bit of a montage track on, because we've got break time coming up. I see that radio clock sneaking up on me. So we're going to put a little 4-minute break on, like you would have on the radio. And then we'll just do that. And we'll come back and talk a little bit more about Rudolf Steiner and the Exam Minds podcast right after this little break, which I'm going to fade in all pro. Anyway, back in just a few minutes. Thanks very much, folks.
Digital broadcasting, where we delve into the mystical, philosophical, and the cosmic in our quest to uncover the unknown.
I think I got a weird connection.
You're saying that this is...
Welcome back from the break. Exile Minds podcast with me, your host, Liam Martin. Also broadcasting on Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And I hope you're all checking it all out and checking out all the various shows that come on during the day there. And there's a fabulous news beat as well. I don't know who's putting that up, but they're obviously brilliant. It's me. Anyway, so yeah, welcome back to the show where we're talking about Rudolf Steiner. We're having a quick overview of his history, his interaction with the Theosophical Society, his interest, and was just before the break talking about how he started the Anthroposophical Society. So we'll have a quick overview and look into that. Get myself off this screen here. I'll zoom in a little bit for video viewers if you can. Okay, so Rudolf Steiner. So had these esoteric interests, got in. Okay, so we'll have a quick overview. So yes, he's got these esoteric interests, and a bit like Blavatsky, I'll get myself on camera. A bit like Blavatsky, Steiner, he had an educated family, and he had the educated stuff around him, and he was encouraged to do education, and he had a knack for this stuff, and he had these esoteric interests, same like Blavatsky, and he had kind of had free reign to go and explore this stuff, and got good at it. That's where we got to. And then she was one of the founder of the Theosophical Society, and almost like one of his heroes, sort of thing. And he got to meet her. Got to join the German division there for a few years. Started pursuing his own ways, looking at the more individualism rather than just fixed on the kind of greater good stuff. He wanted to look at what the individual person can do with this stuff. So that's where his teachings started to sort of diverge a little bit. So reading on about the Anthroposophical Society then. So what was this based on? It was a philosophy based on the premise that the human intellect has the ability to contact spiritual worlds. Okay. I think that also became a bit of an issue where there's a lot of the Theosophical Society is heavily influenced by Eastern philosophy, Indian thought, and Tibetan thinking, and there's a type of Tibetan Buddhism that says that you can create your own soul, you can create souls, whereas the rest of them say no, they're just there and that's it. But so it gets a bit there's diversions. So Anthroposophy is a philosophy based on the premise that the human intellect has the ability to contact spiritual worlds. It was formulated by Rudolf Steiner, an Austrian philosopher, scientist, and artist who postulated that the existence of spiritual worlds comprehensible to pure thought, but fully accessible only through the faculties of knowledge latent in all humans. He regarded human beings as having originally participated in the spiritual process of the world through a dreamlike consciousness. Because Steiner claimed that an enhanced consciousness can again perceive spiritual worlds, he attempted to develop a faculty for spiritual perception independent of the senses. Towards this end, he founded the Anthroposophical Society in 1912, and the society is now based in Switzerland, in Dornach, and it's got branches around the world. So that's what so he's going deep then into trying to develop, so he's not just reading the teachings and kind of I suppose he's not just reading the teachings and sort of following the dogma. But the thing that's important to note here, I think, as I'm just realizing now, is that the Theosophical Society do say they have a bit of a disclaimer that comes with it to do with karma. And the disclaimer is to do with what teachings you want to learn. Okay. It's okay. It gets a bit of a thing because in the Theosophical Society, they tend to not. They're not trying to generate an extra karma. So some of these occult teachings, they won't learn them because you can get wrapped up in like other people's karma kind of stuff. So they'll kind of stay neutral with it. And I think this is where some of the divisions come. It's not a division where you're necessarily upset, or you're just thinking different. It's just that some people don't want to go down certain routes of learning certain things. Make a point of saying this in the Theosophical Society because you can build extra karma for yourself, both good and bad. And what they're trying to do is kind of not build any extra. If anything, get rid of it. A bit like Mahayana Buddhism, get off the karmic cycle thing. So I think some of these teachings, some people don't want to sort of go that way. I suppose it's a bit like you can learn martial arts, but some parts of the world, they won't mimic animals for religious reasons. So they're just not going to do certain styles in a certain way. That's all. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, I'm just thinking that might be some of the sort of differences as well, because there's that thing of how much karma do you want to earn. Do you want to risk trying to learn some extra teachings, but then maybe get some extra karma? And also playing with these ones where they're saying you can create a soul for yourself. Because I mean, you might think of that as a bit of blasphemous. But anyway, moving on with the Rudolf Steiner. Oh, I'll get his profile picture up again. Moving back on with the Steiner profile. So he's founded the Anthroposophical Society in 1912-1913. And he separated from the Theosophical Societies to establish that organisation. And he would say it was driven by his differences in spiritual philosophy and the approach. And like I say, it specifically states that, you know, he wanted to delve deeper. So he's probably wanting to go into some of these teachings that might bring about some extra karma. But he wants to look at the individual spiritual development, like I say, and develop some extra senses to be able to see these spiritual worlds. So he's kind of had to go off as a bit of a pioneer, kind of do some bits sort of on his own, which is fair enough. You know, that's sort of how it has to go sometimes. So he expands the Anthroposophy. So under Steiner's leadership, the Anthroposophical, I can't say it, Anthroposophical Society grew and expanded its reach. Steiner gave numerous lectures and wrote extensively on Anthroposophy, covering topics such as the spiritual sciences, education, as in different types of education, doing the Waldorf education, which we'll get to in a minute, and biodynamic agriculture, which we'll also get to after that. Rudolf Steiner's life and work reflects a complex journey, began with a strong academic foundation that we mentioned, for a strong academic family, and it was all around him. And he had strong foundations in philosophy. He was just good at it. He was adept. It's led to his deep involvement in esotericism, ultimately culminating in the development of the Anthroposophy. His teachings and insights continued to influence various fields, including, like we mentioned, education, agriculture, but also the arts and medicine as well. There's a lot of people reading Steiner. The relationship between the Theosophical Society and Rudolf Steiner is a complex and historically significant one. Rudolf Steiner was initially associated with the Theosophical Society, but later founded his own organisation, as we've sort of discussed. So, comment there, Rico. Hang on to put your copy up over the break. And interesting part with the karma. Some don't dabble with the occult because of karma. Never thought that before. I hadn't either. Yeah, I hadn't even realised that was even a thing to think of. To think about, can you generate in karma and how much of it and how and why. And yeah, I heard that from, what was her name? It was a dear. There's a lady that does it was it from her? I know I listened to some of them philosophical talks. It might have been a talk where it was this guy talking. There was a couple of guys talking about the relationship of Blavatsky and Steiner. You can look on YouTube. It might have been on that, or it might have been on one about seven rays, which I'm going to do a show on. There's the Theosophical Society again. There was someone does a talk on seven rays, but somebody mentions it somewhere in there. This thing about this extra karma stuff, and I suppose it's a bit. It's a bit of a thing. Like, it seems to me, it's like you could. Some of them want to stay in the love and light bit, and they're saying, we'll get to the goal eventually anyway. So I'm just gonna wait, kind of here in a neutral place, try and make myself as harmless as possible, and that's what most of them are trying to do. But I suppose other people are trying to get to the fast forward to the end faster, fast forward to the I don't know, whatever the goal is. They're trying, like, say, he's trying to develop some powers now, but I think the other people are sort of saying, no, I'll keep my karma neutral as best as I can, have a smoother ride, and eventually I'll get the powers once everybody else elevates. Maybe that's the way. Maybe some people are waiting until... Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's like where some people are going to buy it now, going to try and buy it now while it's expensive, but it's fresh and new. Whereas other people, they're going to hang on until it's a bit more readily available and don't cost as much. Maybe that's the way it is. Anyway, yes, Waldorf schools. So it influenced education as well. So we'll have a quick look at the Waldorf schools now. So let's have a look what it says. Because like I say, he's had involvement with the Theosophical Society. He's ended up starting his own sort of situation, and he's had an influence in a lot of different areas, including education. So we'll have a look at these Waldorf education centres then. So Waldorf schools offer a different kind of approach, basically. They offer a developmentary approach, experiential and academically rigorous approach to education. They integrate arts in all academic disciplines for children from preschool to 12th grade to enhance and enrich learning. Waldorf education aims to inspire lifelong learning for all students to enable them to fully develop their unique capabilities. Founded in the early 20th century, Waldorf education is based on the insights, teachings and principles of education outlined by the renowned artist-scientist Rudolf Steiner. The principles of the Waldorf education evolve from an understanding of human development that addresses the needs of the growing child. Music, dance, theatre, writing, literature, legends and myths are not simply subjects to read about and tested. They are experienced. Through these experiences, Waldorf students cultivate their intellectual, emotional, physical and spiritual capabilities to be individuals certain on their paths to be of service to the world. I find that quite fascinating. Oh, hi there, Ben. Hi, it's a random show, Rudolf Steiner. Glad you can make it. Yeah, so that's quite fascinating. I've not really. I think I've seen a documentary on these Waldorf schools a long time ago. But okay, so let's go back through this. So it's teaching children for a focus on dance and theatre, for writing and literature, legends and myths, allowing them to sort of saying it's more about the experiential learning and how you'll cultivate your intellectual, emotional, physical and spiritual capabilities through these endeavours, through the experience of it. I think there is a lot to be said for experiential learning. It really embeds a lot deeper, a lot tighter, I would say. But anyway, this is from waldorfeducation.org. So moving on. Professors who have taught Waldorf students across many academic disciplines and across a wide range of campuses, from the state universities to Ivy League, note that Waldorf graduates have the ability to integrate thinking, to assimilate information as opposed to memorizing isolated facts, to be flexible, creative and willing to take intellectual risks, and are leaders with high ethical and moral standards who take initiative and are passionate to reach their goals. Waldorf graduates are highly sought after in higher education. Oh, I didn't know that. So I suppose, yeah, influenced education then in the way of with his philosophies. I suppose, yeah. So he must have been. So they must be quite successful then. That's quite a send up. So, but like I said, that was what the documentary was about. I seen it years ago when I was like a youth. But yeah, a different way to. It was letting these kids kind of like almost do what they want when they were really young, sort of to express themselves. The boundaries were really quite like loose and stuff. I think they was allowed to go out and kill a rabbit or something, and then see about death and stuff. And then it was like, one of the kids didn't get to see the rabbit get killed, and they was upset. And, you know what I mean? And blah blah blah. It's interesting to different way to do it. How much to express yourself. But then that comes up in psychotherapy when I've learned person-centered talking therapy, when they talk about the approach to children and discipline. And some cultures just have it totally different. Or if a dog comes barking, instead of freaking out and trying to scare the dog away, that kind of scares the kid. You see someone in another country, some random person, they just behave different. Instead of freaking out, they just like pick the kid up, or casual. Just don't even do anything to the dog, because it's not really a threat, is it? And then the kid sees it's not really a threat, so the barking don't really scare it. And then the dog's not, the dog stops, because dogs just, all it can do is bark, innit? Could mean a lot of things. A barking dog, all it's got is a bark to let you know stuff. So, and a bite maybe. So that's about it. That's about all I can say. So there's different ways to do stuff, I suppose. Different ways to approach things. I always say, one way to skin a cat. Not that I recommend doing that. But anyway, yes. Moving on. So his influence education as well, through, like say, looking through experiential learning and I suppose living through the myths and stuff. It gets your imagination going. You think you're drinking the maybe juice, as we say, Michael Strange's show, Trouble Minds Radio. Drinking the maybe juice, as in entertaining a notion without necessarily believing in it. It lets you take your mind for a wander. I think that's how you stretch to some of these breakthrough ideas. But anyway, moving on, so it influenced that and influenced agriculture. And this got me wondering where if you use a holistic approach to agriculture, it got me wondering about whether it relates to this guy, Victor Schauberger, because he was into fluid dynamics. So Schauberger, let's have a look, because I remember that he was into fluid dynamics. He was talking a lot of the similar kind of principles. It was around during the same kind of time. So, and then it turns out, Victor Schauberger, if I just jump down my script here. So there's the biodynamic agriculture is what one of the agricultural influence that was mentioned for Rudolf Steiner. And I thought, well, does that mean that biodynamic agriculture, does that relate to the work of Victor Schauberger? Because it sounds like they had similar views, because he was trying to work with nature and work with water and fluid dynamics to get logs to go down rivers and streams faster and the friction of the water. So he used to be looking at that all the time. And I thought, well, is that related to the work of Victor Schauberger? Because he seemed to have similar ideas about nature. So I thought, we could break this down. So, I mean, we're running out of time here. But Victor Schauberger, basically, he's into fluid dynamics. It turns out that, I'll just do a quick read through. Biodynamic agriculture is an agricultural approach developed by Rudolf Steiner in the early 20th century. It combines ecological and spiritual principles to create a holistic and sustainable farming system. Biodynamic agriculture is often associated with Steiner's Anthroposophical movement. While it shares some common principles with other alternative farming methods, such as organic farming, it also incorporates unique spiritual and esoteric elements. Some of the key elements are using a holistic approach, preparations. One of the distinct features of biodynamic agriculture is the use of specific preparations known as biodynamic preparations, which are made from herbs, minerals, and manure that are used to enhance the soil fertility and plant growth. These preparations are believed to harness cosmic forces. So they're basically making soil amendments but probably not with traditional ingredients, with ones that say they're going to harness cosmic forces or cosmic rhythms. Biodynamic farmers pay attention to lunar and cosmic rhythms when planting and harvesting. The lunar calendar is used to determine when to plant and harvest crops, and the cosmic influences are considered as part of farming practices. Compost and soil health. High quality compost is essential in biodynamic farming, as in all farming, ideally. The composting process is carefully managed to enhance the soil's vitality. The biodynamic farming also emphasizes building and maintaining healthy living soil. Well, that's where I thought it might relate to Schauberger, because in Schauberger's work, he was using spiral plows that were spiraling in a certain direction and making sure that they were made out of solid copper. So that's where I thought they might have some crossover. Crop rotation and diversity. Crop rotation and diversification of crops and livestock are a fundamental practice in biodynamic agriculture. These methods help maintain soil fertility and prevent pest and disease. Well, that's just crop rotation's a thing that we've been doing anyway, what we're supposed to do. Keep moving it around to replace we've been doing that since forever anyway. But one of the things that it was famous for, Victor Schauberger, is he did this, look, the implosion engine. And I thought, I know it's a bit of a segue off, but I thought it was an interesting way to kind of round it off. The implosion engine was one of the inventions that come from Victor Schauberger. And let me just read to you quickly before we finish where this came from, because he heard a story from his mum about, go to the river when I've passed away, and when you're old and you're worried about stuff, come to the river and you'll be able to get your answers. And he goes to do it one time, and things are kind of crappy, but it reminds him of a story, and then he notices something which leads to the invention of a masterful idea. So what it was, basically, back in the day, the foresters and huntsmen and fishermen and their wives spinning the wheel used to recount fairy tales about a mysterious thing that they've all noticed about trout. Mysterious perseverance of the trout standing motionless at the abscess of flowing spring water. It was rumoured that such springs where the souls of the departed can be found, and souls are supposed to be slowly released as they decompose the earthly elements and from the mother's womb, and they're supposed to descend through the streams and migrate upstream. Along them, the souls become charged with purifying ascending current upon reaching the spring, and the current draws up a little spring water, and in its wake it enables the souls to sort of rise heavenwards. So they're saying the souls follow the streams. So he got wondering, while he's contemplating, wondering about his mum and trying to figure this problem out. He's had some bad times, and he's watching these trout, and then he's realizing that a kilometer downstream, it's 180 foot lower down. So how is it the fish are so high up? How have they got such a high altitude upstream? And how is it possible there are so many fish right at the access of the current? There's a large number of fish that are effortlessly motionless, that is sat right in the flow of the stream, and they're not having to move. Just slight movements of the fin keeps them perfect. And that got him wondering about the pressures and how logs, won't go certain parts on the river, but down the centre they'll go perfectly nice and fast, because it's like axial biodynamic forces acting. So he began to realise that's what's happening with fish because of the shape. It's having these certain forces act on him. So he invented, based on that fluid dynamic principle and this natural holistic way to look at stuff, he invented this implosion engine. It's crazy. You want to look into this, links in the description, but it's potentially anti-gravity engine. And it uses implosion instead of explosion. We haven't really got time to get into it, but it's, it's one of them really fascinating little sideways threads that we got to, looking at the Rudolf Steiner and Theosophical Society. And when I found out that he had these agricultural influences using a holistic approach, I thought these sound really similar to Victor Schauberger's work, and then he's got this implosion engine. So I thought, isn't that interesting that it kind of comes full circle, that it takes us from this sort of esoteric thinking, it brings us right down to the practical, that this, like, someone's pulled an invention out of all of this thinking, and it was during that sort of same time period as well, where science is finding its feet, but it's found it out of alchemy and magic, and it's still writing about magic and still pretending that it's not interested in it. You know, always find that quite hilarious. But anyway, that's enough. That's enough for the Exile Minds podcast today. On this special impromptu, trying it out on Restream, episode bonus 44 show on a Rudolf Steiner and the Theosophical Society, the journey into the spiritual enlightenment. So we're going to head on for a little bit of a music thing now to take us out. And yeah, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. Little bonus thing, just wanted to test this new platform out, see how it goes. So I hope it's been enthralling for you. Hope you've had an interesting time. It's nice to see some people in the chat. I didn't advertise it too much, but get in there, keep turning up, you know. Anyway, thanks very much for showing up, folks. Oh, I'm glad you found it interesting. There we go. Yeah, I do try my best, but when I get more into the flow, you know, sure I'll keep improving. I endeavour to keep improving. And if you think there is something I can do to improve, you know, write it in the comments. Yes, a bit of constructive criticism never goes amiss. But anyway, we'll get some music. Get some music playing, and we'll have this one. Little ad break there. Press that. There we go. Fade this in. All my own music, you know. Anyway, you take it easy, folks. I'll catch you next time on Exile Minds podcast with me, Liam Martin. Look after yourself.
You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where the strange is just another day at the office and the unexplained is our playground.
KUAP Digital Broadcasting, Troubled Minds Radio. Do you ever feel like you're being watched? Don't trust the government. Wonder if aliens are real, what's possible and what's not. Will they actually take over the Earth? Do ghosts exist? What about Sasquatch? Curiosity peaked? We've got more. We don't go deep, we go wide, because we're already at skull-crushing depths. Who is the most powerful oligarchy running the world from the shadows? What about these UFO reports? Are they falsified? Are they going to keep giving us nothing burgers over and over and over and over and over and over again? We got more. Why is there so much contradictory information about peculiar topics? Is the Illuminati a real thing? What does the New World Order even mean? Come and join the conversation. Let's try and dig. Let's try and find out. Because if we don't do it, it might not get done.
You're tuned into Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we peer into the future, embrace the power of AI, and delve deep into the conspiracies that shape our world.
Some people believe that crystals have spiritual properties and can be used to connect with the ancient civilization of Atlantis. They believe the crystals were once used by the Atlanteans for spiritual healing, meditation, and communication. Some people believe that the crystals can still be used for these purposes today. The Atlantis crystal power myth is the belief that crystals from Atlantis have special powers. This myth is often associated with the idea that Atlantis was a highly advanced civilization that was destroyed by a natural disaster. Some people believe that the crystals from Atlantis survived the disaster and can be used to tap into the power of Atlantis. Have you ever tried? Check out Spirit Magica Crystal Shop and use coupon code Troubled